let's get started with Lisa B. For those of you who know Lisa, she needs no introduction. For those of you who don't, I've known Lisa for a decade-ish. When I met her, she was in real estate and kicking some butt, owning an agency, listing, selling, just being an all-round beast. And then I saw her at a coaching training where I was learning how to be a speaker, and so was she. And Lisa has now become one of the more prominent coaches here in the industry, teaching others how to do it, how to market, a lot of stuff on social media. I did some training with Lisa where she was teaching me some social media stuff back in the in the early days of Facebook. So she certainly knows her way around a Facebook feed. And our friend is letting us down today, Lisa. Hey, Facebook. But
no live stream.
But thanks for jumping on. I wanted to have a chat to you and some of our other principal licensees in the industry. And so Naomi will shuttle in a few of our friends and colleagues from around the country while because Jay Stanley is our next speaker, and that guy's just a beast. But let me pick your brain for a little bit. As a business owner, both former and now as a coach to so many business owners, how's this bloody situation that we're in affecting business owners? And what are some of the ideas and thoughts you've had around what we can do as business owners? Because, it's like the expenses don't go away. We're being told to stay in houses and stop. And yet we've still got people with bills with their hand out. Like, give us your take on things.
The business owners now, they've still got the same issues they've always had, like, the staff problems, internal conflicts, personal issues within the offices, non-performance, being a counsellor, all of those things, staff leaving, joining the competition, starting their own businesses, all of that sort of thing, right? So putting the staff issues aside, I think... And people aren't going to want me to say this, but the last 3 years or so, some of the things that have happened and it's really sort of heightened to the next level, is the Fair Work Commission. So commission only. Costs have skyrocketed. And I think the traditional business model is breaking at the seams to cope with those things. And the current business model is extremely risky. And we've seen that now. There's so many people that are struggling to keep their businesses and to keep people employed. As a result, I'm finding that principals are welcoming and wanting low risk business models. Okay, let that sink in for a minute, because the traditional business model is high risk, and we've seen that now, haven't we? So they're looking for the low risk. They're looking for more affordable options and, lower monthly costs and all that sort of stuff. And the other thing that is a fact at the moment is some of the business owners that I'm talking to are moving the egos out of the way. And, that they've got their offices and they've got their staff and they've got, all these salespeople employed. And they're actually going now with the dollars and the cents, the facts. They're going, you know what? I'm going to make more money by myself without having some of these staff members in the traditional business model, right? So that's a hard thing for a principal to do, and to remove the ego like that. So, and that's something I think, you and I have been part of eXp, and there's, other business models like that. And I think, some of the principals are looking for those types of business models. So, a low risk business model, no staffing issues. You can still build a team. You can still have people, kind of working with you, and you're helping them. Your costs have substantially reduced. Your monthly costs are substantially reduced. More training and support, more time to build your business and to be entrepreneurial in your business, and to have exit strategies. So basically, in a nutshell, because I'm talking to people from the eXp model, they're the conversations I'm having from those people. So it's completely different. The traditional business model that we had is people are looking for different options now.
And well, on that looking for different, now, by the way, Lisa mentioned eXp. And if you're wondering about that particular model, we're going to have a little session on that with Lisa and with a couple of people there to give you some more information about what that is an hour after. So I don't even want to give you a time, but it's an hour after we're done today. Right, so it'll give me an hour just to wipe my brow and everyone else to kind of get ready. But then I'll give you Naomi's phone number to get the link to that if you want to jump on to have a look at that in a moment. That way, this session isn't just all about kind of what eXp is, because I really want to talk about the challenges that companies like eXp have arisen to combat. Like it didn't just come out because it's a good idea. It came out of a need in the industry that was bugging people. So, and we've got Dan Neylan here from the Sunshine Coast, great business owner, ARIC speaker. That's where I first was introduced to Dan some decade ago, maybe even a couple of years, maybe 12 years ago even. Dan was an icon then up on the ARIC stage teaching us about business ownership. So I'm glad to have Dan. Let me throw this question to Dan, and then Lisa, I'll definitely get your take. Dan, one of the challenges that I saw in the industry is every principal feeling hard done by that they have to pay the salespeople too much. Like they're giving the salesperson, say, 60%, whatever the case may be. And after all the expenses, there's bugger all left for the principal. So we've got the principal feeling the salespeople get too much. We've got the salespeople going, why do I give this bloke 40%? Bloody blah. And so there's this adversarial zero-sum game going on where both the salespeople and the principal are becoming increasingly more dissatisfied with the other party. And mate, as a principal licensee and a salesperson yourself, I'm sure you can see both sides of that coin. Give us your take on the history, I suppose, of that adversarial relationship. When did it change? Has it always changed? Is there still a way within the traditional model to make it work? And what have you seen as maybe some of the solutions to that adversarial relationship with people who are supposed to be on the same page?
Well, thanks for having me, Glenn. Look, absolutely, I've watched that happen really over the last 10 years. And I think the people that felt it first were the franchisees. They sort of felt it first where there was a proliferation of independent agents going independent, but it's sort of filtered down. And I think the catalyst of it has been technology and the ease at which agents can now sort of do it all themselves. And they don't feel that they are as reliant on a principal to provide everything they need as a real estate agent. Now, whether there's any truth to that or not, there's certainly that perception and therefore a perception of value. And that's the constant challenge I think principals face is, salespeople thinking, well, am I getting value here? What are the other options? And of course, the principals, as I think Lisa made some fantastic points. The business therefore has become higher risk, higher cost, and certainly principals are looking for ways to say, well, how can I do this? Because exactly as Lisa said, most of them started out as pretty good sales agents themselves, and they could turn around and say, well, you know what? If I just sort of get a team around myself and just have some sales associates and some PAs, you know what? At the end of the day, net position, I could probably do as well without all the headache, and there's a truth to that for most businesses. And I think as an industry, one of the things we often talk about, we always talk about GCI, gross commission in, and in some instances, of course, that's relevant. But we get so focused on GCI that a lot of principals sort of stop looking at the net.
Yeah, that's it. I remember I was saying I had the attitude. There's so much gross around here. There's got to be some net left somewhere. But if you aren't measuring it, all the net can be gone, and that gross and those expenses can be sometimes pretty comparable.
Yeah, and look, it's very admirable to be able to give all these people a job and have an input into their futures. And you know what? I think a lot of people that make that transition from sales agent to principals, for a lot of them, there's a great sense of satisfaction. I know that's one of the things that saw me go into business ownership. But at the end of the day, you've got to look at the end of it and say, well, what am I doing this for? There's got to be something in it. And I do think, there's been a lot of new business models come out. They're starting to sort of be a very competitive space within the real estate arena, models like eXp, that people are looking seriously at. And I think it's one of them is going to be the interrupter, I suppose, for an industry that really hasn't changed for quite a long time.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I happen to, I looked into that particular one that we mentioned a few times here today, eXp, this little growing network that is, and the thing about it, and guys, I will just to let you know that I looked into it for 2 years because every brand and franchise, has approached a coach or a trainer like me to see if they can come in. A couple of the big ones from America even approached me about being master franchisor. And I never was tempted until I saw one that completely allowed all the things that an independent gets, but gives all the things that a brand gets. And it was so much the best of both worlds. But again, but what Dan is saying is it happens to be the one that after some due diligence that we chose, but there are a lot of other options other than just, if you're going to be independent or you're going to be one of the big three or the big four, it's certainly a more diverse landscape now based on those options. Lise, what would you say? Let me ask you this, and I'll definitely get Dan's take on this. If the salesperson is demanding more of their principal licensee in terms of the things Dan mentioned, ease of getting a CRM, ease of getting coaching being so much easier to find. I was talking to the great Lee Woodward on Friday about eXp, and he's about to do an event in the eXp virtual world. So I was talking to Lee about this, and he even said, now Lee was one of the mainstays of this industry, like literally. When I was getting into real estate, there was Lee and maybe one or two other people that you could get information of. There was Lee, there was Eric, Hot Topics, which was Lee, and not much else. Michael Shegold was there, and Mark Dwyer. Those were the coaches. That's all I knew. I learned from all of them, love them all. And when Lee said there's so much information that agents could get out there for free, well, okay, then a brand no longer can say, we give you training, because they can get that anywhere. They can get a CRM for a couple $100. They can get all this stuff for far less. So tell me about this. For the principal licensees, Lise, and you've got a group that just talks to people asking you questions. What are the principals demanding of their brands? And how is that, hey, I got salespeople annoying me for what I get for my 30%, and you're taking 10% of that 30%. What are you giving for more? Tell us about the demands of businesses on the brands and what that's leading to.
Well, they do want support. They do want training. And that's where a lot of them are lacking. And they're the ones that we're talking to now because they're not getting that. They're seeing that they're paying a franchise fee and not getting much back, and when trouble hits, some of them, they want legal advice. They want all these different resources or networks to help them. And a lot of them can't provide that. I'm not saying everyone, because there are still some really good franchises there. But, I think it's really when trouble hits, that's kind of, in this day now, that's what they're really wanting. And that's why they're reaching out and feeling like they're not getting that support. And that's why it's breaking. And the costs are too high. They're trying to negotiate costs and Yeah.
And Dan, you've been an independent since I've known you. Why did you never, when you're a successful salesperson, you were kicking butt. What was your take on, I suppose, some of the more traditional models? Why did you never do it? And why do you see there's increasing pressure, I suppose, from the industry to demand something that perhaps in some cases they're getting to a degree, some cases they're getting wonderfully. Like you couldn't drag Matt Steinway out of McGrath for love nor money, right? You could not do it. So he is there through and through, and yet others are questioning the value they're getting from their head office and everywhere in between. What's your take on that phenomenon?
Well, I think for me, in some, I'm a little bit different because I started my career in '93, and I waited until I'd, won awards and been, performed as a sales agent, and I didn't sort of go into business ownership until 2005. So I really tried to make sure I earned the right to sort of be a leader in that respect. And when the business that I purchased was actually a first national business. And I looked at the offering and I did exactly what I sort of just explained. I thought, well, gee, I can get training myself. I can do this myself, that myself. And I looked at which wasn't a really high amount, I think it was 4%. And I thought, well, what am I paying them 4% for, you know, and so, you know, I went independent. And I also felt that, you know, going independent gave me more flexibility and could create a point of difference in my brand, and there's all other reasons. So, you know, I sort of went in that direction because I felt confident to do it. But I do think, you know, franchises are great for people who, you know, don't have a lot of real estate experience. They're a great way to enter into the industry, and if indeed you get that support.
True. Agreed.
But I think the issue for a lot of principals is not just that. It's truly, and I've watched it happen. It's truly that being a real estate principal now has become a lot more complicated. It's a lot more complicated. It used to be a lot easier. It was a lot simpler. But now if you're running, you know, like I run, you know, as a single operator, a sales force, a holiday department, which is, you know, in crisis at the moment, a permanent rental department, and to keep on top of everything, more and more is becoming a challenge, you know. So then you have to look at, do I take on partners? Do I employ more managers, which is what I've had to do? And the whole thing just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And you actually can, I actually think we could be sort of in some ways hitting a turning point where it's become so complicated, and customers' expectations have increased. You know, as we know, we're not compared to other agents anymore. We're compared to other businesses and the service levels across the world. You know, those expectations have complicated it so much that I think we're going to see more and more sort of specialisation where, you know, a business is either a rental business, or it's a holiday business, or it's a sales business, because to do the whole gamut of things is becoming more and more difficult and to perform at that level. So I think, you know, a lot of principals are feeling that pressure as well, that they just can't juggle all the balls and deliver without, you know, a lot more infrastructure and complexity needed. So, you know, I think, again, some of these business models coming through are appealing because they simplify things. Or outsource things, and that helps, you know.
Yeah. And at least you just mentioned, kind of brain fart, don't go on me now. Bloody hell, we're only 2 hours in.
It was really good.
No, you know what? No, Dan it was good. No, Dan just mentioned the first sort of place that he dabbled was First National. And again, that would be an example of one that isn't 10%. It is less than half of some of the others, and yet he was still asking the question. So just like in sales, what would you say about maybe the answer to this dilemma for maybe some of the more traditional models? It can't be just charging less, because Dan just described one at less than half the price. And I think the Remax one is about that. It's not as much as others. So it's not just dropping the price of the franchise fees, because that's not going to be the answer, is it? Because they're still going to ask the question.
No, I think we've also got to look at what principals want and need. You know, they've got to be able to make money, but also what the staff want. The staff want a growth, you know, a succession plan, or you know, somewhere that they can grow into the business, a career path, and that can be the share options and all that sort of thing. They want rewards. You know, like salespeople love showing their awards. You know, it's your recognition. Nobody else cares, but we do, you know, don't we? Yeah. We want to be able to go, I got that number one, I got that number two.
So, but anyway,
what I was going to say is, like, I think salespeople, they want the support and training. They want a reasonable commission structure. You know, and nobody wants this conflict. Like I said, you know, and like you said, the principal and the salespeople are starting to really hate each other. I got to give them 40. I got to give them 60. I got to give them 50. You know, nobody wants that animosity. You know, and so I think, you know, the share options, rewards, and all that sort of stuff, which eXp does. Working for someone who's flexible, innovative, and who allows creativity, which some of these franchises put you in a box and you have to check it. You know, you can't even make a social media post unless you get it checked. You know,
yeah, I didn't see that coming. I've heard people being banned from going live on Facebook by their corporates. Not allowed. And I'm like, whoa.
No, I could not do that. I can't be put in a box, you know. I just can't. I need to be creative.
Purely practically, that is cutting off one of the most lucrative per eyeball marketing opportunities in the world,
Personal
and they are
branding.
forbidden from doing it by
Exactly.
some rules that some corporate guru has said, oh no, we can't risk you being drunk at the pub with a lampshade on your head. I mean,
You can't do that control. You've got to have your business brand and your personal brand. And, you know, if you've got the right people in your group, you should be able to trust them enough that they can, you know, that they're going to represent your brand properly. I mean, that's my things, but, you know, and also forward thinking, you know, they want a brand that's forward thinking, that's, you know, kind of not stuck in that box. You know, so that's what I think the salespeople want as well.
And Dan, Lisa just mentioned shareholding in the company. So let's ignore, because again, we will have a talk about shareholding at 2 p.m. today on a little session with Lisa, with Dan, about the eXp model and how it is changing the game. I mean, it is the fastest growing network. You can't call it a brand because it's your brand. It's got choice and flexibility of being your own brand. So we will have a chat about that at 2 p.m. today. But then ignoring that opportunity where they gift people shares in a major, in the major head office company, have you ever had salespeople asking you to buy into your business? Because really, if eXp didn't exist, asking the boss, hey, can you let me buy into the company or give me some of the company or whatever, you know, that's the only other option that a salesperson has to get ownership in a company, unless they want to go start their own. Have you ever had that phenomenon where they say, come on, man, let me in?
Yeah, look, I have, and in actual fact, I've lost salespeople who had those aspirations, and I frankly couldn't offer it to them. You know, I think, you know, some companies, particularly I've seen in Melbourne and Sydney, do, you know, partnerships or equity partnerships very, very well. And they tend to be the bigger companies. But most agents don't work for those big companies. They work for small agencies. And I think for a small agency, it's very difficult to sort of have that structure set up. And the alternative is a different commission rate. But yeah, I think it's an aspiration that a lot of people have, and I think it's a good one to have, and it's a good one to be able to facilitate. I've never had it actually happen. As I said, I lost one person, but I wouldn't have made that person a partner. But I've got others that I would happily make a partner. But I don't think after they see what it takes to run the business, I think they sort of change their mind. So, you know, I'm sort of pretty transparent, so I think they might sort of change their mind a bit.
Well, and that's the thing. We've got, you know, in sales, there's no career path with which to, if you're a competent salesperson, the only option upwards is open your own shop. And often that has a complementary skill set that just isn't the same temperament, isn't the same personality type that succeeds to be in all cases. Of course, there are the exceptions, you know, but in a lot of cases, it's just not the same animal that is a brutal, you know, Matt Steinway-esque personality that can do millions of dollars in sales that can also run the company. I mean, Matt's got Jamie because of that phenomena. You know?
Yeah, and look, you know, I'm good mates with James Tostovan, and he'll be the first guy to say, look, I'm a partner in the business, but you know, I'm a selling partner, and I don't actively, you know, get involved at, you know, to the same level as other directors. And I know those other directors, and I can see why they're in that position. So you're absolutely right. But you know what? It's a funny old thing. Happens a lot. You know, you become a really good salesperson. You go, well, look, you know, what's next? What's the next aspiration? You either, you know, go into business ownership, often on your own. And then you sort of discover what you've got to watch what you wish for, you know, because then you suddenly discover, oh, I've got all these other things I've got to deal with. And gee, I don't know if I like this as much as what I was doing. I think I might have been happier. But sometimes by then it's too late to back out, you know, and people just continue on and on and on and try and persevere. And they're sort of banging a drum that they don't really want to be doing. Yeah. So I think for a lot of people, making that decision is really, I think if anyone's sort of listening and they felt that way, they really need to just sit down and make that decision if that's a problem for them. You know, otherwise you could just go on and on and on for years doing something that you're not enjoying. You know, it's easy to come into real estate and get carried away with it all, and and forget what attracted you to it in the first place, you know. And for a lot of people, it's selling and dealing with people and the sense of achievement and all those things that you might not have once you change it. So
it ain't balancing a bass, I tell you. As a business owner, some of the stuff they ask me to do, I'm so glad I have people that I've surrounded myself with to handle those things, so I can still do my highest and best use of my time.
Well, it's also about family too, you know, because it's not just you. You know, sometimes I can tell you, my children range in age dramatically from sort of 33 to sort of 19, and I can say that the older ones, you know, I wasn't around a lot in those earlier times. It's much more difficult. Later on, I was able to give the younger ones a bit more time, but it's a challenge, and you really got to think that through, you know.
Well, our next speaker is sorry, I've just got my bloody slides just screwed up. I'm preparing my slides for our next speaker. Our next speaker, Jay Stanley, is certainly, to that point, just a genius when it comes to being an absolute animal in the sales arena. Owner in the business who doesn't run the business, his brother Reese does, and a family man unlike the likes of which I've never seen. So I can't wait. And, you know, so we've got to get Jay on. Least, final words. What would you say in final words, knowing that we're going to catch up with some people to talk specifics, but, you know, you've been working with a lot of people. Oh, you're just getting him on? Okay, cool. Yeah, what would be your final words you'd say to salespeople wanting to be entrepreneurial and more business owners who are getting frustrated with the current market? What would be your final word for those folks?
I'd say, you know, look at different options, you know, because it's not just because we've been doing the same thing all the time, it doesn't mean it's the right thing to do moving forward. You know, look at other options. Yeah,
there's a bunch out there, and they've, you know, we happen to have chosen one to be aligned with that we believe does some good things. But you're right, we are, if nothing else, spoiled for choice right now of varying models between independent and traditional franchise, and there's so many levels in between. Dan, what would be your parting advice with literally a couple of decades of experience there under your belt? You've seen it all. What would be your advice for folks, you know, business owners or people who are considering it, you know, with regard to specifically 2020?
I think my advice right now to most people would be to say, just calm the F-U-C-K down. You know, like, just calm down. You know, we're in a bloody pandemic. It's not easy. Everyone's under different pressures, whether it's, you know, you with your own sales or whether it's the principal trying to cover his overheads. Everyone is under massive pressure. So be a little bit understanding of each other and just calm down. Things are not going to be perfect. There's going to be a bit of a rocky road. You know, shit happens, and it just, you know, just got to be a bit patient, you know, and just calm down. Let this thing run through, and then, you know, look towards the future, because I think everyone gets a little bit sort of wired up and you know, got all their own issues, and you just got to be a bit understanding that we're all got challenges at the moment, and just calm down, let it play through. You know,
bloody wise words, mate. I tell you, the amount of aggro I see online predominantly, you know, social media, for all the good it's done, is certainly guilty of allowing, you know, a unprecedented level of not calming down, like Dan kind of said there. Yeah, so that's sage counsel, man. Agreed. You know, when I was talking to Michael Clark, last speaker, he sort of said something that made me think of this, that when we can see that light at the end of the tunnel. I grew up as a young fellow, my parents had horses, and whenever they were on the home stretch and they knew it, they would get a spring in their step. They'd be a bit more antsy, wanting to they'd just get a bit more enthusiastic about getting home. So maybe that's the thing. If we can see that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, maybe we'll get a bit of a spring in our step, and we won't be so, you know, nipping at each other, perhaps. So wise counsel, Dan. Thank you, my man.